I paid off my parents' debt and bought them a new car, but when my cousin called me too poor and they agreed, I took it all back. Hey everyone. Before we kick off today's video, I've got a favor to ask. We've noticed our channel isn't getting as much love lately, and subscribing is one of the easiest ways you can help us out. It's quick, free, and it means we can keep bringing you awesome content. Your support really means a lot, so let's work together to keep this channel growing. Thanks a bunch. Now, let's dive into the video. So, I'm 28 years old and I'm working as a maintenance supervisor at this apartment complex. It pays pretty well, and I've been stashing away money for years because I wanted to do something meaningful for my parents. They've hit some rough patches ever since my dad got laid off from his factory job 2 years back and my mom's part-time gig at a retail shop barely covers the groceries. They were falling behind on their mortgage, had credit card debt piling up, and their car was making this awful grinding noise every time they drove it. Plus, they couldn't afford to fix the AC when it broke down last summer. Watching them stress over money was tough to see, especially since they're such good people who've worked hard all their lives to raise me right. It always gets me thinking about all the sacrifices they made when I was a kid. Like my mom would bring tiny lunches to work just so there'd be more food for me and my sister, and my dad drove this old truck for 15 years because he said new cars were luxury for rich folks. They never asked me for help, but every visit, I could see those worry lines on their faces getting deeper. My mom even started buying the cheap, scratchy toilet paper, which, trust me, nobody likes. So, I thought, why not surprise them with something big? Not just paying off a bill or two, but really turning things around for them. I wanted them to feel secure again and not have to pick between paying the electric bill or buying meds. I was saving up for a house, but I realized that could wait. My parents needed help now. What's the point of buying a house when they're struggling, right? I spent weeks planning it out. First, I cleared their mortgage, which was around $47,000. Then, I wiped out all their credit card debt, which was another $23,000. Finally, I went to the Honda dealership and snagged them a brand new 2024 CR-V in silver, my mom's favorite color. It had all the bells and whistles, like heated seats and a backup camera. The plan was to surprise them after church on Sunday when the family gathered for dinner. I wanted everyone there to see the look on their faces when they found out the stress was over and they had a shiny new car in the driveway. I was so pumped about it, barely slept the night before, just thinking about how happy they'd be. I got to their house early, parked the new CR-V with a big red bow on top, and waited inside with my sister Sarah, who was the only one in on the surprise. When my parents came home in their old Honda and spotted the new ride, my mom legit screamed while my dad just stood there, jaw dropped. For about 10 minutes, it was perfect. My mom was checking out the car, while my dad was all over the features, asking whose car it was. I finally told them it was theirs and that I'd paid off their house and cards too. Their reactions were everything I'd imagined, my mom crying happy tears, my dad getting choked up. But then my cousin Derek rolled up, and everything went south. Derek's the guy who needs all the attention. He works in tech making bank like $150,000 a year, and he's always bragging about his stock options, his fancy loft, and his Tesla. He's been the golden child since forever. So he starts grilling me about the car cost and how I could possibly afford it on my salary, setting things up to make me look bad. I tried to brush it off, saying I was just doing something nice for my parents, but Derek wouldn't stop, pushing for exact numbers. My parents are still emotional, and my dad's telling Derek about the house payoff too, and Derek's face just changes, like he's flipping a switch. He starts going off about how my move doesn't make sense financially and how I'm probably screwing myself, and he's doing all this in front of everyone instead of just celebrating with us. Then my Aunt Linda, Derek's mom, shows up, and Derek starts telling her the story, framing it like I made a reckless choice instead of highlighting the generosity. Aunt Linda's always been weirdly jealous of my parents, so now she and Derek are huddled up, whispering. My sister Sarah tries to shift focus to dinner, but there's this storm of tension brewing. That's when Derek pipes up loud enough for everyone to hear that it's funny how I'm trying to play the big shot when I probably make less in a year than he does in 3 months. Bam, out of nowhere, attacking my earnings right after I did this huge thing for my folks. I told Derek that it wasn't about the money or showing off, it was about family, but he wasn't stopping. He launched into how I'm a maintenance worker and he's in tech, implying that I don't understand the financial implications of my actions and should have consulted someone who knows about money before making big decisions. My mom tried to get him to stop, but Derek was on a roll, suggesting that instead of buying cars I can't afford, I should work on getting a real career. That's when I lost it. This guy's never done a day of manual labor and doesn't understand what real work looks like. I told Derek that at least I don't spend my time trashing family members who So, here's the deal. I was just trying to be nice and show that not everyone measures success by how much cash they've got. But then Derek laughs it off, saying stuff like that is what people say when they're broke. Aunt Linda jumps in, claiming he's just being practical and looking out for everyone, which is a joke because Derek always puts himself first. And my dad, instead of backing me up or telling Derek to chill, actually says Derek has a point about being smart with money. He even adds that I should have talked to them before doing something so big. Mind you, this is right after I paid off their house and bought them a car. And there's my own dad siding with Derek over me. My mom jumps in, saying she's grateful but also worrying if I can handle all this financially, looking at me like I'm clueless about managing money. Suddenly, this whole chat morphs into a critique of my financial choices instead of appreciating my help. I'm standing there feeling ambushed from every angle. Then Derek, in his typical fashion, says something like, "It's sweet you wanted to help, but maybe next time get something more within your budget, like a nice dinner or something." That's when my mom hits me with the real kicker, saying she appreciates my effort but thinks I should have Derek smarts for a job because then I'd supposedly find a better way to help without risking myself. She's literally comparing me to Derek right in my face after I gave up my future savings for them, acting as if Derek would have done it better. I'm just standing there, trying to process how, in just 20 minutes, I went from hero to zero, watching my sister Sarah's horrified face because she sees the situation for what it is, but everyone else is nodding along with Derek's so-called wise words. Finally, I just say I can't believe they've turned my gift into a critique of my life choices. If they think Derek's so good with money, maybe he should be the one helping them. My dad says I'm being too touchy and they're just looking out for me financially. My mom chimes in, saying she never talked down my job but just worries about my future and whether I'll ever match up to Derek. There it was again, this endless comparison to my supposedly more successful cousin. Derek, meanwhile, stands there with a smug grin, having successfully made my moment all about him and how much smarter he is. Aunt Linda nods along, praising him. I declare I'm done with the conversation, suggesting that if they think Derek's so great with money, maybe they should just hand him the car keys and see how generous he feels. My dad calls me ridiculous, insisting that's not what anyone meant, but I'm already heading for the door, too angry to stick around. My mom follows, telling me I'm overreacting and that everyone's just concerned. But I told her if she really cared, she wouldn't have spent the last hour making me feel like a fool. She argues they're grateful but questions if I can afford it or have emergency savings left. I just tell her it's too late to worry about that now, and next time, maybe she should defend me instead of doubting me in front of others. But I was already driving off, too angry, needing to pull over because my hands were shaking. For the next few days, I stewed over it, realizing that Derek had planned the whole act. He saw a chance to make me look bad and ran with it, and my folks didn't shut him down, instead buying into it. What really cut deep is knowing Derek has never once offered to help them out financially. I mean, he's family. Helping out is just the decent thing to do. So, I decided not to let it slide. I called up the Honda dealership and told them I wanted to return the car, and luckily, because of their return policy, I was able to get a refund since it was within the time limit. I also reversed payments to their mortgage and credit card companies, which was tricky but doable since they hadn't fully cleared yet. I didn't mind paying some fees to make sure my money didn't go to a house and car my parents would enjoy while thinking Derek was a financial genius. I went to my parents' place, told them I was undoing everything. My mom starts crying, asking why, and my dad gets angry, demanding what's wrong with me. I told them straight up that I spent my savings to help them and instead of thanks, I got treated like I was stupid. I said if Derek was so savvy with money, they could ask him to clear their debts and buy them stuff. My dad calls me childish and insists I misunderstood, but I told him I heard them loud and clear, and when you're given a $70,000 gift, the least you can do is say thank you, not mock someone. They begged me not to take it all back, but the damage was done, and I wasn't interested in any forced apologies. So I was kind of stuck dealing with Derek's nonsense, trying to get him to act right. I told my parents that when Derek showed his true colors, they backed him instead of having my back. I let them know they'd better sort things out by Friday because I was picking up the CRV to take it back to the dealership. My mom was in full meltdown mode, sobbing, while my dad started yelling, saying I was punishing them for Derek's behavior. But I pointed out that it wasn't Derek who made them doubt my financial choices, they did that on their own. Dealing with the bank took ages because, believe it or not, when you pay off someone's mortgage, there's a whole heap of legal stuff that needs untangling. The credit card companies were all confused, like, why are you reversing these payments? Which meant I had to drown in paperwork and cough up some penalty fees. But by Friday, I got everything back to square one, except now my parents really knew how I felt about how they reacted to my gift. I went to pick up the car, and both my parents were there, trying one last time to change my mind. Dad was all, "We've learned our lesson, and we won't let dear Eric disrespect you again." Mom apologized too, but I knew they still didn't get it because Dad was still focusing on dear Eric being rude, missing the bigger picture that they sided with him. I laid it out for them. It wasn't just dear Eric being rude. The issue was them doubting my judgment after I used my savings to help them, while before they didn't seem to worry about my finances when they were the ones struggling. I asked Mom if, without dear Eric, would they have doubted me and compared me to him, or would they just have been grateful? Their silence told me they didn't really appreciate what I'd done. Took the car back to the dealership, feeling a weird mix of sadness and relief, bummed out, but also glad to see their true colors before throwing more money their way. The dealership was cool about the return, minus a few fees and the bow. The mortgage and credit card stuff got sorted, though I did have to pay some fees. In the end, my parents were back at square one financially, but now they knew I had the means to help and chose not to because of how they treated me. Of course, word spread through the family, and suddenly everyone had an opinion. Dear Eric called, acting like I overreacted, claiming he was just looking out for me. Yeah, right. I told him if he's so concerned about our family's finances, maybe he should start writing some checks instead of critiquing others. Aunt Linda has been backing him up, calling me cruel and saying family should forgive each other. She's spreading lies that I'm jealous of dear Eric's success, which is total nonsense. My sister Sarah gets it, though. She saw how quickly things went south when dear Eric opened his mouth. Even though my folks want a family meeting to sort things out, I don't see the point. Dear Eric still thinks he's better because he makes more money. My parents believe I should have consulted someone smarter before stepping in, and I still think they're ungrateful. I'm firm on not giving them the money back, and they're not about to suddenly start appreciating the gesture. The car's returned, debts are back, and now everyone knows where they stand. Some might say I'm being too harsh or should give them another shot, but I'm not begging for respect from my own family. If they couldn't see the value in what I did without dear Eric's input, they don't deserve my help. I'm saving for my own place now. Let dear Eric handle it if he's so smart about money. I'll be focusing on me, which is obviously what I should have been doing from the start. And if you can believe it, the drama didn't stop there. Dear Eric took it a step further, telling everyone I'm having a mental breakdown and that's why I reacted strongly to his so-called advice. He's even saying I'm jealous of his success and made a rash decision I'll regret. My cousin Jennifer gave me a heads up, knowing dear Eric's full of it, but he's spreading these stories to relatives who don't know me well. The worst part? Aunt Linda's been backing up his story, painting him as the responsible one looking out for me, claiming I got mad because I couldn't handle the truth. It's just a mess. So there's this person in my life who just can't handle it when someone gives them a bit of constructive feedback without losing it. The whole situation got totally crazy when I got a call from my mom one night. She was crying and told me that dear Eric, another family member, had offered to help them out with their money woes. But, and here's the kicker, only if they convinced me to apologize to him and admit I was wrong. Dear Eric apparently said he was ready to step up for the family, but first I had to own up to being out of line. So basically, he's holding my parents' financial security hostage unless they can get me to grovel to him. And my parents are actually thinking about it because they're in a tight spot and don't have many options. Mom mentioned that dear Eric promised he'd clear their mortgage and even buy them a new car, just like I had planned on doing. But he wants this big public apology from me at our next family event, where I have to say I was just jealous and wrong. I told Mom if she even considers going through with this, she's basically choosing his cash over my dignity. I mean, dear Eric's not doing this out of kindness. He wants to make me look bad so he can swoop in and be the hero after I couldn't come through. Mom says she doesn't want to hurt me, but their financial situation is really rough, and maybe me apologizing wouldn't be the worst thing if it helps everyone move on. I was shocked to hear my own mom suggesting I should humiliate myself just so she could pay the bills. I made it clear that if they take dear Eric's deal, they're showing they care more about money than respecting their own son. That made her cry more, insisting she loves me and it's not fair, but she's terrified of losing their home and feels stuck. That's when it hit me, they never really got why I wanted to help them in the first place. If they did, they wouldn't consider letting dear Eric play this power game where I have to beg for forgiveness. They're acting like my generous offer and dear Eric's manipulative one are on the same level, but they're really not. Dear Eric's just trying to buy their loyalty against me. I told Mom she has to choose between his money and having me around because I'm not going to watch him become the family favorite while I'm seen as the unstable one who couldn't hack it. She begged me not to make her pick, but I told her dear Eric already did that by holding their problems over them until I submit. Then Dad calls the next day with a different angle, saying maybe we can compromise where I don't have to apologize exactly, but just acknowledge Derek had valid points. He says Derek would help them anyway, but it'd be smoother if I'd just agree I acted out of emotion. I ask Dad if he even hears himself, because he wants me to lie and somehow say Derek was right to trash my gift in front of everyone. Derek's points weren't valid, they were just spiteful and mean. The fact that Dad can't tell the difference shows whose side he's really on. Dad says I'm being stubborn, that sometimes family means swallowing your pride. But I told him it's Derek who should be doing that and apologizing for once. Then he drops the bomb that Derek's always been smart with money and successful, so maybe I should take his advice instead of defending myself. There it is again, assuming Derek's money means he's automatically right and I'm wrong. I told Dad that just because Derek's successful doesn't mean he can just walk all over me in front of everyone, and it doesn't make his views more worthwhile than my own feelings of being disrespected. I said if he thinks Derek's cash makes him a better judge of character than his own son, maybe he can stay indebted to him instead of me. Then our sister Sarah called after hearing all this and was just as grossed out as I am. She thinks Derek's being super manipulative and that our parents are weak for even thinking about his offer, but she gets that they're scared about their money situation. Sarah thinks I should stand my ground and not let Derek win by apologizing, even if our parents have to stay in debt. She says if they choose his money over my self-worth, that tells us everything about their values. But Sarah also said something that's been bugging me. She's worried this could tear our family apart for good and years later, we'll regret it. She's not saying I should fold and apologize, but wonders if there's some other way to fix this without leaving our parents in a financial mess and the family all split up. I told her I didn't cause this mess, Derek did by attacking me for trying to help. And our parents made it worse by siding with him instead of defending me. If the family gets hurt, it's because Derek cares more about his ego than family peace, and our parents care more about his opinion than respecting their own son. What really gets under my skin is that Derek's offer proves he never cared about family help, he just wanted to look better than me. If he really cared, he'd have helped them out way back when they started struggling, not waiting for me to offer help just to use it against me. Now, he's using their desperation to force me into an apology he'd hang over my head forever. If I cave to his demands, everyone will remember that Derek made me say I was wrong, jealous, and bad with money. He doesn't want to fix a problem, he wants to win a game that only exists in his mind. Thinking about Sarah's point on family damage, maybe that's what needs to happen, to finally see who values what and who's ready to respect family versus sell out for money. If my parents take Derek's deal, I'll know their love depends on me not rocking the boat. So, I've always tried to stay in my lane and not do anything that might make Derek feel insecure about being the successful one in the family. But if my parents don't go with his offer, Derek's gonna realize his money can't buy the family admiration he thinks he's earned. No matter what, at least everyone will know where they stand instead of pretending we're all buddy-buddy while Derek treats me like crap. Plus, while my parents enjoy my generosity, they secretly think Derek's better. I'm not about to say sorry to Derek or beg my parents to pick me over his cash. I did what felt right trying to help them, and I also did what felt right pulling back that help when they dissed me. Now, they'll do what they think is right, and we'll all just have to deal with the fallout. So here's the latest. My parents were supposed to meet up with Derek to iron out the details of his help, but he ghosted them and is dodging their calls. My mom called me on Thursday night, crying because Derek's been texting her with lame busy with work excuses and that he'd sort out the payment schedule soon. I told her he's just stalling and his offer probably wasn't real from the get-go, but she didn't want to hear it. Accepting that would mean admitting she chose his empty promise over her real son. She kept saying Derek's a good guy who wouldn't lie about that stuff and was probably just sorting out the logistics of such a big financial gig. Then, Friday morning, my mom freaked out because Derek's landlord called her, looking for him. Apparently, Derek used my parents as a reference when he signed his lease, and now he's 3 months behind on rent and could get evicted. The landlord was asking if my parents knew where Derek was because he's been ducking calls and they need to talk payment or he's out. My mom was confused since Derek's always been bragging about his swanky loft, and she couldn't wrap her head around how someone making 6 figures could be behind on rent. I suggested maybe his money situation wasn't as solid as he made out. That's probably why his offer to help kept getting delayed with vague excuses. Then, on Saturday, my cousin Jennifer calls me with the lowdown that makes everything click. Apparently, Derek asked her for cash last week, saying he had a short-term money issue but would pay her back with interest when his stock options came through. Jennifer got suspicious because Derek's been flaunting his wealth for ages. So she started digging into his job and finances. Turns out, Derek got laid off from his tech job 4 months ago and has been living off credit cards and unemployment since. But he didn't want the family to know he was struggling because his whole identity is tied to being the successful one. The downtown loft he's always showing off? He can't pay the rent and might get kicked out. And that Tesla he loves to brag about? It's getting repossessed next week because he's missed payments. Jennifer said when she pressed Derek about his job, he broke down and admitted he's been lying about his financial success because he couldn't bear the thought of the family finding out he's struggling. He's been using credit cards to maintain his lifestyle while job hunting, but the tech market is tough right now, and he hasn't found anything that pays like his old job. So, when Derek was giving me grief about my financial choices, acting like a money whiz, he was actually drowning in debt and probably jealous that I had $70,000 in savings to help our parents while he couldn't even cover his rent. His whole spiel about appropriate gifts for my income was pure projection since he's the one who couldn't afford to be generous, not me. He was messing around with my parents' financial security just to boost his ego and make me look bad. I told Jennifer this totally explains Derek's behavior because secure people don't spend so much time trashing other folks' generosity unless they're insecure themselves. Derek wasn't knocking my gift because he thought it was dumb, he was mad because it made him look bad since he couldn't help our parents. Jennifer agreed and said Derek's always been competitive and jealous, but losing his job made him desperate to prove he's still better than everyone else. He saw my generous gift as a threat to his status in the family, especially since I work in maintenance and he's always turned his nose up at blue-collar jobs. Now that everything's coming to light, my parents are realizing Derek's offer was never real, so they tossed our relationship for nothing. My mom's been calling me nonstop since Jennifer clued her in on Derek's true situation, begging me to forgive them and help them again. She's saying they were manipulated by Derek and are sorry for believing his lies over my real generosity. She feels terrible for choosing his fake promise over my actual help. But I told my mom that Derek didn't trick them into questioning my judgment and comparing me to him. They chose to do that because they actually agreed with him about my life and career. I said Derek's money problems don't change the fact that they listened to him rip into me and decided he was right about me being irresponsible. Sarah's furious about the whole Derek situation. She says he's even worse than we thought because he gave our parents false hope just to feed his ego. She thinks Derek knew he couldn't help them but let them think he could, which is a whole new level of cruel and manipulative beyond just jealousy. I'm standing firm and not helping them out again because Derek being a liar doesn't change that my parents were ready to throw me under the bus for paid bills. They showed me where their priorities are and what they really think of me, and Derek's money issues don't change or excuse that.